Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I'm so happy to have on the channel. I finally found him, guys. He was hiding in a corner, but I dragged him by his feet and brought him in here. I'm talking about Ash. Ash, thanks for coming on, man. This is great.
Deadwood Jedi! I'm so happy to be here, man. It's been too long.
It has been too long. It has been too long. Yeah, we were just on Ash's channel. We were recording a video talking about the new arena, the live arena, and ways we might be able to go about beating it, strategies that we're thinking about, ways we're prepping our own accounts. And so we're back here, and now we're going to talk about the dungeons, the new hard mode dungeons, and we're going to talk about some of the ideas and ways we can go about, strategies to approach, but maybe some champions that we want to use. But yeah, you excited to get in on this?
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. I mean, I know there's been kind of, I don't know about your viewers, but there's been kind of like a mixed reaction a little bit to the new dungeons and the new content. But I mean, I'm a fan. I like how they, instead of just adding more levels, I like that they changed the dynamics as well. And I gotta be honest, I like the energy cost staying the same as well for the new levels. So although it's more hard content, I do think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited because it's a new way to approach these things, right? None of the stuff we've done before is invalidated. It's still valid, right? I still farm what I want, what I've been doing, and it's going to be the same quality of gear. It's just now I have a better chance of getting some better stuff. I do like the energy cost doesn't appear to be any higher, which is kind of good too.
Knock on wood, they don't change that, right?
Yes, 100%. Right, I mean, definitely have had some mixed reactions by my audience as well, right? Yeah. But I feel like that's anytime we get something new in this game, people are going to see the pro and the bad, or the pro and the con. Yeah, that's right.
But you know what there's a lot of things that still, a lot of quality of life that still needs to be added to the game.
Yes.
So I think that adding new content, it just naturally brings up that frustration. Like, oh, great, new content, no matter how good or bad it is. But what about all this stuff that we still need to be fixed and stuff? So I can totally understand,
100%. But I'm like I said, I'm excited about it. I think that's going to be fun, nice challenge to do, and I'm always down for a new challenge. So let's get in. Let's talk about this. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss the next one. I figure we'll go dungeon by dungeon, kind of talk a little bit about, strategies and things like that. I don't have the video going up, but I'm going to toss up a run of what we already have going on. And then we can kind of talk a little bit about, what's different, what's new, and how we're going to go about it. I know Dragon, the big thing, it doesn't appear to be any different as far as like what the Dragon's doing necessarily, except that it's focusing a lot more on poison. So the damage it's dealing is really poison focused, right? It's going to put a bunch of poisons on us, and then it's going to basically explode those poisons on our champions, which can be very tricky if you don't prepare for it right. But I do feel like this is probably the easiest one to deal with because of that, right? We know, okay, let's block some debuffs, let's cleanse some debuffs. Shouldn't be too hard, right?
I agree. That has the instant activation. So obviously going around the instant activation skill to just make sure at that point you don't have the poisons on might require a little bit of like AI tuning on the Dragon stage, or Dragon round or whatever. But other than that, I don't see any like massive strategy shifts that we're going to need. I still think that like if you have Nishak Verminlord, you're going to be A-okay, or whatever strategy for the most part that you were using, as long as your speeds, and we don't know obviously the stats of either the waves or the bosses yet, so it's a little bit conjecture there. But I don't know, I'm basically going to go in first, just using the same strategy I use right now, and then maybe if necessary, adding in a cleanser, maybe a Doom Priest or something like that, just to see,
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, obviously right now, one of the biggest things for people is just you nuke the waves as quick as you can and then just get to the boss, right? And like just beat it down as hard as possible. Like I use a Krizia on my team. A lot of people use poison champions.
Ooh, I'm so jealous that you have a Krizia.
It's nice. It's nice. 40-second run on Dragon is pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you just pull her from the last shard, or did you get her earlier?
I pulled her like a month or two ago, I think. So it's been nice. It's a big quality of life change for me, honestly.
Absolutely, that's a time saver right there, man. All right,
huge,
but yeah,
huge. But yeah, I don't see a lot of difference. The one thing I am nervous about, though, is like, when I do my Dragon run now, even with Krizia, the Dragon still takes turns. So, it's not like I would be immune to that poison explosion. So I'd still have to find a way to deal with it in all likelihood. And I imagine at these hard levels, it's going to be a longer lasting Dragon. I'm not going to be able to nuke it down as quickly. So I do feel like there's going to have to be some kind of adjustments in your team thing. Plus, it's probably going to be hitting a lot harder too. So, bringing in champions like I think Elva to cleanse those debuffs, I think will be really massive. Like, I love using Seer as a way to nuke my waves. Bringing somebody that can cleanse those debuffs, an Elva or a Pythion, I think would be really, really smart way to go, right? Cleansing the debuffs and being able to block the debuffs, I think is kind of going to be essential to this.
You're right, and you could run. We don't know again what the accuracy and resist are going to be. Are any of these debuffs going to be unable to resist? Because that would obviously change things as well. Because potentially you could bring on like a Pythion, champion and super high resist, and then just keep cleansing and reviving the team. So I don't know, TBD on the dragon, but I'm not as concerned with the dragon as I am with the other 3 dungeons.
I fully agree. There's one champion I do want to point out that I think is kind of an interesting, I don't know if they'll ever get used for this, right? But I think it would be really cool if they can. Herp Tuck, because you do more damage with poisons on you, and because the boss is putting poisons on you, I feel like there's some synergy there. I don't know if it can be used, but it's kind of a cool idea.
That's a good point. There's so many interesting poison champions out there to experiment with. You have Noct, the Paralyzer. Obviously, that's like healing like crazy. You have Corvus as well in Sacred Order. So there's a lot of like interesting, maybe niche poison strategies that might be relevant in the dungeon. But again, it's going to require a little bit more playtesting, I feel like, on the dragon to see which of those is most important. But at the very least, having a bunch of cleansers, if you have Mithrala, if you have, whomever, I think you're going to be good to go.
I agree. Okay, which dungeon do you want to talk about next? We got Ice Golem, Spider, and Fire Knight.
Yeah, I am personally most interested in Fire Knight. Okay, I don't know if that means we should leave it for last or should do it next.
You know what? Let's leave it for last. I think most people are interested in that. I think that's the one that scares people the most. I definitely have some ideas. I know you do. So let's say that for last. Let's jump over to Ice Golem. I think this is kind of an interesting one here because obviously, the boss being immune to poison is definitely a massive change, right? That's my team uses poison.
Poison activation is gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a massive change to it. And so obviously it has a little bit more, damage from HP burn. I don't know really how much that matters, but that's going to be interesting on itself. The minions being revived and losing max HP is kind of an interesting little thing there. Again, the problem with Ice Golem is it just takes so long, right? Yes. Being able to revive those minions and the damage that you take if you damage the boss too much. It's really hard. Yeah. So is there anything about this that you're seeing that, we're going to want to do differently necessarily from what we were doing before? Because personally, I'm not seeing it too much. Right now, it seems like it's kind of the same approach, Obviously, you're not going to, do like I'm doing with the solo Battle Khazar, just poisoning everything. But, I wonder if there is a better approach, if you're seeing anything off the jump.
2 ideas is... So number one is it's going to change from poison combustion to HP burn combustion, I think, right? In terms of,
I think so.
And that seems to me like a super no-brainer. So champions like Dark Kale and champions like obviously Theodore and
Walking Tomb Drang.
I was going to say Walking Tomb Drang will be a really, really good champion, I feel like, with the instant activation and the irresistible burn placement.
And the healing.
So I think that
healing's nice.
He's a champion that I'm really thinking we'll see a ton of action here. So I think that the strategy won't shift that much. It's still going to be, I think the main strategy is going to be instant activation and stay alive as long as you can. And if you don't have an instant activator, then I think people will start to use, and this applies to probably multiple of these dungeons, but just go with shield champions. Like I could see a lot more, Miscreated Monster, a lot more Sir Nick, a lot more Helikath, block damage champions. You're just going to need to keep your team alive, and shield and block damage seems to be, the route to go there. So I feel like, he already hits so hard, the Ice Golem on stage 25, more so than any other boss, the traditional dungeons. Yeah. So I'm just worried about keeping my team alive. And then after that, I'm going to try to add in the HP burn where I can, and then the activation, if I can kind of have the luxury of doing a little bit of everything. I will say, though, I currently run Eleanor on my team as like my poison combustor. I don't think she'll be seeing much action anymore, but I do think that Xayvia, if you're running her or if you have her, I think she'll still be really good because you can still block revive on the minions, even though,
I think that is such... I'm so glad you brought that up, Xayvia, because I was thinking of that same thing when I was looking at this. I was like, to me, the biggest change is the importance of blocking the revive. I think that actually becomes more important now because these guys hit so hard, and they keep coming back and coming back. And as much as I love being able to reduce their max HP so they're easier to kill, that is just the slowest approach. If you have to deal with the minions every time, it's just such a slow approach. But if you can kill them, then you can actually use raw damage and take down the boss that way, and it doesn't become as much of an issue. And so I think you're right. I think actually, Zavia is still going to be a meta approach to this. Poison explode along the way to get through the waves, and then block the revive of the bosses, the minions. And at that point, then you can start using a solo HP champion, like maybe a Sissia or a Walking Tomb Drang, or or what's the name of the champion? Ninja, even, right? Like, I feel like those then become really good approaches. Obviously, one of the things that we haven't even talked about really is the accuracy requirements, resistance requirements, which I have a feeling are going to be pretty insane, and that might be a whole nother part of this. Well,
that's why, again, you can run a burner. Like, that's another reason for Drang, right, to be so great there. What's his face, the ogre guy, Ignatius, obviously doesn't have the instant activation, but he can provoke, the minions, hopefully, and then he can land those burns as well. So that's an interesting note there. I do think there's only a handful of increased accuracy champions out there, but really for every dungeon, depending on how high these resists are on these bosses, it might be interesting to invest in at least one, even Khazar Deepheart, if you can keep him alive, right? But someone with an increased accuracy could definitely help out, or an accuracy aura.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The one interesting twist of this, of course, is like, as much as I think blocking the revive of the minions is probably going to be the speed runway, right? I think you're probably going to be using Zavia, blocking the revive of the minions, maybe like a Fenax or somebody, I don't know. And then just nuking down the boss with like raw damage. But I do think if you do the HP burn strategy, I actually think it makes more sense to keep those minions alive, because every time an HP burn activates, it damages the boss, and having more champions available to activate that can actually, potentially, I don't know, but potentially could speed up the run too, and it might come down
that's a good point. Yeah. First and foremost, it's about staying alive, and then it's all about like optimizing. Okay, what can I afford to do this without? And will I still survive? Will I still win? So I agree with you, though. It's going to be very interesting to see the HP burn strategy on just Ice Golem versus the block revive, because I think block revive champions are pretty cool. There's like a little bit of a niche meta maybe for them in the arena right now, but they're not used that much, outside of that. So I think it'd be actually cool if they forced us a little bit more to use block revive champions, giving them a more healthy spot in the game. So I kind of hope that we have to block revive, but there's not that many of them either. So,
yeah, I would definitely be interested in that. I think, a couple of champions I should point out. I think Jotun has a potential here because he's such a long, I think it's a 4-turn duration on his HP burn, which is just massive. And then the other person, I think, obviously Geomancer, because those bosses do so much damage, that's a kind of a natural way to go with that. The HP burn kind of factors in too. So there's some interesting champions there. I think those would work out pretty nice. Let's move on. Spiders, shall we do? And talk about this interesting dungeon. I think this one's
a weird one, man.
Yeah. Ooh, it's interesting, I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean,
so now the heat. So when an HP burn ticks off of a spider, it heals the mother spider by 1/3 of the damage. Do I have that correct?
Right. Yeah, that's what I saw. I saw a video. I think Cold Brew did breaking that down. Yeah. And it's basically a third of the damage. So any strategy we have currently even the HP burn strategy seems like it should still work to some degree, just probably not as well, right?
Take forever. Yeah.
Exactly. But what's also interesting is, you kill a spiderling and the boss takes damage from that, which brings up a whole different variety of approaches to this. But of course, we talk about dungeons, we talk about speed runs. And if I have to wait for all those spiderlings to fall down, how much time is that going to take? So is that even a viable strategy on its own? I don't know. The other interesting thing, can't turn me to reduce the spider. The Spider Queen will cleanse herself, which is another thanks for that.
That's the crazy part,
Yeah. But so I'm curious as to what you think. I know in the video they said bring in AoE champions, and quite frankly, right now that seems to me to be probably the best approach to things. And then it becomes about timing out the skills and when they're being used.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned him, but a champion like Miscreated Monster, he's like that shield is based on his damage dealt. So against all those spiderlings, it might just be one of those slow battles where you just AoE nuke and keep your team alive at all costs or revive them. But I don't know. It's like, this can't be the case, Deadwood. But to me, it's just like, wait a second. It feels like we're going backwards on Spider, right? Because it used to, like, that's the low stage strategy, is just all out nuke. And it feels like a more sophisticated strategy to HP burn and stun. And now it's like going back to all out nuke. So to me, without turn meter being a factor and HP burn being somewhat mitigated, it almost seems to be a simpler version. Not maybe not as easy, maybe still more difficult, but of a simpler version of just AoE nukes like Royal Guard, all day or something, and husks. Am I missing something, or does it just? I don't know. It's tough for me to grasp because in some ways it seems a lot easier but slower to me.
I actually agree with you. I think you're right. Okay. I think it is kind of going backwards. What I think is going to be really interesting though is I think when you start getting to the high levels and people start really trying to speed run this, and so then you start timing out when these big AoE hits are happening and how you're setting it up in a way that the spiderlings don't take a turn and the Spider Queen doesn't heal. And if you can find those parameters, those timing moments, I think then you could have a really interesting run, right? You allow everything to land, you can nuke them all, and then the Spider Queen takes their turn, kind of thing. I think being able to devise your team in order to make that kind of flow happen, I think that's really where we're going to see a lot of success, where you can see some big wave damage, and then you do a lot of individual Spider Queen damage after that, right? And I think that's going to be, at least initially, what the approach is. But, the other approach might be really interesting, where you start doing, you start using champions like Akemptum, or you start using champions like Theodore, and you start doing some poison explosion, which could be a really interesting approach as well. And kind of, you're not worrying about the HP burn, but you're getting a lot of poison going on, and that could be a different way to really take down the Spider Queen and do some serious damage there. So that could be some alternative approaches to this.
I agree. Kemptum is a good call out, man. I was thinking about him. I totally spaced it out though, and you're right. I'm like, that's a champion that'd be very interesting to see in this new Spider. But again, it's gonna be one of those things that I'm curious in terms of like speed tuning and stuff like that. Deadwood, what is your methodology? Do you go in there on manual and just keep testing and testing and testing, and then once you come up with something that kind of works, you try to AI customize it and then replicate? Is that kind of how you do things when you're working on a better time, or how do you do it?
Well, one of the things when it comes to things like dungeons, right? When you have champions that are dying or enemies that are dying, it's really hard to automate it, like create a calculator type of thing, right? It becomes very difficult because the timing of things becomes very difficult. I have an Excel spreadsheet that does a lot of the calculations of the times and stuff. So when I'm playing with something like that, and I've used this for things like Sand Devils or for Iron Twins to kind of come up with a couple of the speed tunes that I did come up with. I'm able to make individual adjustments, right? I'm able to go, okay, this happens here, so I can make an adjustment for what where their speed is at this point or whatever. But it's a painstaking process to do that, right? So I'll theory craft, I'll watch, and then I'll adjust, based off of that. When I'm doing something like Spider, a little bit different, right? Because there's so many little spiderlings that are going all over the time. I've never bothered to put that in the calculator or anything like that. So with something like this, I'll do a run like this. I'll watch it. I'll see what's happening when, and then I'll try to adjust it based off of the things I see. I'll see the turn meter where it's at. I'll see the turn meter for my champions, and I'll just kind of make rough adjustments in my head of like, okay, well, let's tweak this a little bit up. Let's tweak this a little bit down, and just kind of see how it goes. And you end up falling, into where things are supposed to work. But I'll do this too with things like Iron Golem or Ice Golem and Fire Knight or Dragon. I'm sorry, Ice Golem or Dragon, where you also have those seer nuke teams where your seer has to take another turn on the second wave before they get back to their nuke. And sometimes it's too slow and the enemy will go, and I can see that and be like, okay, well, we need to speed seer up. Or we need to slow somebody else down so seer can get more ticks, or, speed somebody else up a little faster. A lot of times
that's what I do too. Like a lot of trial and error, basically,
It really is. But the more you'll
get there.
Exactly. But the more you play, the more you start to understand what the thresholds are, and you go, okay, I know I need to be around this spot, so I'm probably just a few speeds short or whatever. But yeah, that's generally my approach with it. Okay, let's move on. Let's do Fire Knight, the big one, the bad boy, the one that has everybody and their mother scared of, because we all saw that big shield of 21 ticks on that Fire Knight shield. Yeah, that seems a bit tricky. Do you have any what is your thinking on, do you want me to go into my thinking on this, or do you want to lead us off here?
You can lead off this time if you want to. I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. Well, my thinking is obviously getting through the waves is going to be its own struggle, right? And so we're going to have to figure out what's going to be the best way. It might just be you just fight through the waves and just deal raw damage and not worry about, it might not be doing these big nukes. I'm not sure yet. It's going to depend on how tough they are, but obviously getting to the Fire Knight and beating that down is the trick. And I think there's going to be two main approaches, right? One is get the shield down initially and then just try to freeze as much as you can, because obviously the big thing with the shield is, or with the boss, is no turn meter reduction.
No turn meter. No allure.
I know, right? Except when they're frozen. When you place a freeze on them, then they lose 15% of turn meter. I think that might work. Actually, not very, very optimistic about it. But I think the better way to do it is try and knock the shield down as much as you can, as consistently as you can. So things like counterattack, reflect damage, ally attack. I think those are going to be the go-to approaches for doing this. By the way, I just want to point out, I cannot believe my Fire Knight team just lost here. When we're trying to talk about this, I'm like, what am I doing?
No.
What have I done? Why did I have this up here?
I've been there before too on like a collab, and one time I was interviewing Plarium, dude, right? And I'm just mindlessly in the background just trying to play something, right? And I must have lost like 3 or 4 dungeon battles in a row. I'm like, dude, I am really, and I couldn't, I was recording live. I couldn't redo anything. I'm like, yeah, no big deal. Anyway, that sucked. Hey, one loss isn't that bad, man. But
that's fine.
Anyway, sorry. Go on.
No, but my thinking right now is let's knock the shield down before the boss even takes, before turn meter starts to tick. Because the thing is if I can't reduce the boss's turn meter, then I need that shield down as quick as possible so I can get as many attacks in as possible, right? And the thing is, once the boss takes a turn, if I have counterattack and reflect damage, I'm knocking that shield down before anybody's turn meter starts ticking up. And so for me, that seems to be the way to go. Get some multi-hit attackers, get counterattack on them, have reflect damage on them. Reflect's going to knock out 5 of it right away. The counterattack is going to, let's say, double hits on everybody. That's another 10 right off the bat. I only have to deal with 6 more things. If I can toss in an ally attacker to go right off the jump, then we're getting all of our attacks in, and I don't have to worry about the shield anymore. That's my thinking initially, and then just bring enough damage and enough debuffs to kind of make that work on a consistent basis. That's my instinct initially, but it doesn't sound like a fast run either, right? So I'm not sure if that is going to be the way to go.
It's good. This is a weird one, man, because I almost think that fear for me is not going to be my priority, right? Like, it's going to be a nice to have. If I have like a freeze champion on the squad, sure, cool. It will work. It will be great. But I think for me, similar to you, it's going to be, if you have Valkyrie, I think she's going to be like a cheat code, right? Because you have the counterattack and then you have that big shield because this guy's going to hit so hard, right? So counterattack's going to be tremendous. Ally attack. So I'm going to try to have at least one counterattack or one ally attack champion on my team, right?
I think you have to.
I think that Rhonda is going to be amazing, right?
Yep.
For this new and improved Fire Knight especially. And then after that, I'm basically going to load up with Phantom Touch because it counts as a hit too, right?
I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point.
I'm thinking Phantom Touch, ally attack, and triple hitters or quadruple hitters, whatever you can find, right, on A1s. That should be enough to get that shield down. Because even at 21, but 21's a lot, dude.
It is a lot.
Even 21, but I thought it was a large bump to 12 or whatever. 21!
It's a ton.
Not only are you going to need, all those components to the team, but you're also going to need all those cooldowns to be on refresh, on cooldown on the third wave. So you're going to have to go in there and manually or change your AI, So I don't know, man. And what's the deal with the restore max HP? Are we going to need restore max HP? Because doesn't he reduce our HP now on every hit too? Or am I reading that wrong?
So these are, I've had some thoughts on this. It's a good thing you bring this up. Yes, the boss is going to reduce your max HP by 15% of the damage he does. So making sure your team doesn't take damage will be really helpful as far as surviving this. So things like block damage, shields, I think all that's going to actually be really, really helpful for you. And you lose 1% of max HP whenever you hit the shield. 1% doesn't worry me. 1% does not worry me. I don't care how many hits you're getting in. I'm like, it doesn't concern me that much, right? It's the 15% from the hits that he does. So I'm thinking champions like Valkyrie, champions like Helicath are going to be super valuable because you're not taking damage, or the damage that you're taking is from the shield. And so your max HP isn't going down as bad. Now, I'm not, obviously it depends how they code it, right? If the shield hits still damage you, then like that sucks. Like that's a nasty thing. Yeah. But it still should add to your HP total, right? So it should still help you stay alive. I think that's going to be really valuable. I don't think you're going to need the restoring of max HP. I don't think you're going to need it.
If you do need it,
I really hope not.
What is it Miracle Heal? What is the blessing?
Yeah, Miracle Heal.
I don't even know the name of Miracle Heal that restores HP. So like you could go with like a Varask or something with Miracle Heal, right? And that should keep you up and replenished. It's just going to be a matter of how that works, but something to get your eye on, I guess, for players out there, right?
Yeah, that one's really tough. By the way, I realized why my Fire Knight team sucks is because I was playing around with approaches using... Well, because we had the Ronda challenge. And so I had my Ronda challenge. I was messing around with Ronda challenge teams. I'm trying to even find the one I use. I don't even know where it's at. I don't even think I have it anymore. I can't do Fire Knight anymore, guys.
You're the same way as me, man. You're the same way as me where you do a really bad job. A few of them I see. But I had the same thing on all my save team presets. I don't use the title, man. I could just title my main Fire Knight team. But I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, which one was my team again? It's been like a week since I farmed this dungeon or whatever, So
bad. So bad.
There you go. But I think that honestly, that's a pretty good rundown, Deadwood, of what we're kind of doing for the dungeons, even with the limited knowledge that we have right now.
I fully agree. I think, we're definitely talking about like the options that we have available to us and what people can do. And I think this kind of covers them pretty extensively for us, right? Like,
I'm excited, man.
There's nothing crazy going on here, but
it seems like it might drop before you figure out your Fire Knight team.
Shush your mouth. I'm going to get it. Look, we're sitting here and we're watching at least one run till I get it right. There's just no getting around it, my friend. I'm sorry.
I love it, man. I love it.
I do think one thing, I can add one thing while we're watching my Fire Knight run hopefully
you
finally
get
win.
That vindiction, man.
I'm sorry. You're my channel, my rules. We're watching one successful
I hear you,
run.
man. We're going to watch this ever. No one better tune out right now. Let's watch it crazy do her thing.
I do think there's going to be a place for some multi-hit freeze champions, right? Like Pixneal, Sir Nick, I think would be really good. Gory,
oh my god, I never thought I'd see the day.
Did I say Pixneal? I'm sorry. I just meant I meant to say Shiramani. Pixneal is but I think actually somebody like
man.
I don't. Gory might be a really big win though. He has like a 4-hitter with the freeze on it. That could be really, really powerful as far as reducing turn meter.
Jingle Hunter? Little Jingle Hunter action?
And we're out, guys. It's been fun doing this video.
Come on, man.
He said the secret word.
You know what I think they should do in conjunction with this? I'm going to throw a real curveball at you. I think they should rework the frostbite set that nobody really uses, right? And make it every time you hit instead of every time you're hit, right?
I agree.
And it would give us a great reason to use Frostbite. And there you go.
Yeah, we won.
1 minute and 11 seconds, too. Good job, man.
Not bad. Okay.
Not bad at all. There we go.
Got redemption. We're back. I'm official again, guys. Oh, Lord. That was tough. Hey, man, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to do these collabs. This was a lot of fun. I really always enjoy hanging out with you, so I know the audience will too. Guys, I'll have links down to below for not only Ash's channel, which if you guys aren't subscribed, I don't know what you guys are doing. You've been enjoying my free-to-play content. He does amazing guides for new and early game players. He does really good guides on like the latest strategies and stuff that are going out there too, so definitely go check him out. But on top of that, I'll have a link for our other collab about the arena and the stuff that's going on there and theory crafting with that as well. So should be a lot of fun for you guys. Thanks so much for sticking around. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.